Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Ham.
Here.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Here.
Gandy.
Yes.
Rowe.
Here.
Okay. Council, we have one change to the order of the agenda. The resolution for the ARPA funds we're gonna put in, excuse me, in front of the grant applications. So minor detail. Yeah.
That order.
Right, and it's good to have things in order. Any other changes to the agenda? Not, we'll do the consent agenda. Hang on,
It's a big one.
so I don't cough. Approval of the minutes of the February 2024 council meeting. Approval of the March 1st, 2024 payroll in the amount of $147,745.26. Approval of September, October, November, December, and January finance reports. Resolution of employment in the Utilities Department. Resolution of employment for the Streets Department. Acceptance of the Ways and Means Committee minutes for February 13th, February 20, and February 22 of 24. Acceptance of Volunteer Center Committee minutes. Acceptance of Library Board minutes. Consent of Park Use Permit for Trans Rights Bodily Autonomy Rally. That's a noise exemption. Approval of liquor license for Quality Quick Stop, The Hideaway Pub LLC. Approval of ACH payment to Iowa Department of Revenue in the amount of $12,810.04. And approval of total claims in the amount of $278,445.01. And there are no claims more than $75,000.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Okay, moved by Gandy.
Second.
Second by Toohill. Any discussion?
I did review the claims and they all seemed in order.
Okay, great. Any other questions? None? Please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes, however, because I was absent, I'm going to abstain from the minutes.
Flournoy.
February 26th.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. That passed unanimously. Under public forums, we have a couple appearances tonight. Our library director, Alex, is here and gonna give us a library update.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to provide information and a timeline for the library's transition to a new finance procedure with the city. But first, I'll provide a very brief background on our procedure. Historically, the library's director and an assistant have processed incoming claims for all purchases and contractual services. Items necessary for providing continuous library service to the community, such as gas and electric, building maintenance, and salaries, have been paid for by the city. And in an earlier time, the city also paid for library materials such as books, movies, and music. Since 1968, the library has also managed an Iowa State bank account where gifts and memorials have been deposited. Additionally, the library has acquired a small number of CDs which were created when the library obtained larger gifts. The interest payments from these CDs is deposited in the library's Iowa State bank account. For this account, the library pays for all library materials with an annual budget of $60,000. The majority of funding for materials comes from quarterly grants from our library foundation, also deposited in the Iowa State bank account. In December 2023, library trustee and treasurer Sherry Smith and I attended a meeting at the Sigourney Public Library with State Library District Consultant Becky Heil, who provided guidance regarding library finance. At this meeting, Becky Heil strongly recommended that the library keep all its funds in the city's general fund and not write any of our own checks, which we have been writing our own checks to our library book vendor and other vendors that provide services or databases, things of that nature. This practice that Becky described is outlined in Iowa Code and recommended by the State Auditor's Office. From my understanding, the reason for this is that city clerks tend to have a much better awareness of finance best practices. And the truth of the matter is that the funds due by Iowa Code already belong to the city. The library is simply managing some of the funds specifically for library materials. At a meeting in January with members of the library board and Doug Reinert, Rebecca Loper, and Denise Estel, we decided we are all in favor of a transition. This would require depositing the Iowa State Bank funds in a new restricted fund line with the city. And moving forward, the city would prepare payments for the library's materials expenditures in addition to payments from our city library budget, which the city, of course, already does. The library's CDs would also be held by the city, but the library would retain the right to utilize these CDs as a source for materials expenditures. Interest payments from the CDs would be deposited in the library's restricted fund line. To be clear, the library does also receive money for services that we deposit with the city as revenue, such as for printing and fees for meeting room use and lost items. But we request that the library always retains control of funds that we receive as gifts and memorials, as these funds are designated by community members for library use. Our Library Finance Committee and myself still have a few procedures to examine before we begin the transition and the deposit of the Iowa State Bank balance with the city. However, I anticipate the transition to be completed prior to the end of the fiscal year, ideally in April or May.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Just for clarification, didn't quite understand. Did the Iowa Code recommend condensing the funds or require it?
It recommends that libraries deposit all funds in the city's general fund.
So you haven't been out of compliance all these years?
Well, there's some ambiguity there. It turns out that at some point we were flagged by the state auditor, but the library was never made aware of that.
They were grandfathered in at the time because when this law had come into place, that they had already been operating this way, and so that's
okay.
why.
And then the other question I had, so when we get our audit done, the library's also audited?
Yes.
Right.
And so we're just a little behind the times. Most libraries, I
Right.
think, based on what Alex told me, was that most libraries have already done this transition.
That's right.
Correct.
Yeah, I think Becky Heil said she thinks that maybe as many as 10% of Southeast Iowa libraries are not operating under these procedures, but she strongly recommends that we adopt this new policy or this new procedure. And there's also a law librarian at the State Library of Iowa, and she did a webinar and has a video online that you can view about library finance, where she strongly recommends that libraries adopt this procedure of depositing all funds with their city.
Yeah, it's being handled like any other department, really, when it comes under here.
One more question.
Yeah.
So when someone makes a bequest to the foundation, for example, or donates money to the city and tags it for the library, we're obligated to spend it in that fashion, right?
That's correct.
So you would automatically have the rights to all those monies without having it specified anywhere.
Right, that's right. They basically, I mean, the library, the funds that are given to the library should be used on library projects and library related expenditures only. If we, and typically we've really needed the funds we've received for the library materials. And we've tried to operate in a manner where we spend all of our materials budget every year. And if we were receiving more donations from the community that were going into that Iowa State Bank account, we wouldn't need to ask the Library Foundation for as much support. But the way it comes out, we end up asking them for the foundation for $40,000 nearly every year of our $60,000 budget. And the rest of the funds we get primarily from gifts from Paul Prather. We have special funds from Joe Mandarino, and the interest from the CDs that basically gets us up to about $60,000.
So the foundation monies are not coming under the city because that's a private foundation.
Right,
So
right.
to be clear,
The
That's a separate
foundation,
That's what I was
that's a
wondering.
separate
It's
entity.
a separate
Yes.
entity
Yeah.
altogether, like the
Yes.
Park and Rec Foundation.
So it's not
is.
gonna impact the way in which people can donate to the library?
no,
Okay.
no.
So those monies are still gonna be separate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There is a complication, Alec, and
Sure.
the library endowments have been around longer than the foundation or the way we're doing things, the way the state auditor wants it recently.
Right.
And so you've got probably, if some of the families of some of the previous donors to endowments wanted to make noise, they could. And fortunately, most of these folks they've done something generous and then they've passed on. But there's a difference between our status, 170C, governmental, 501c3, and some of the things that actually predate some of the rules on those. So it's the ones that predate the rules that probably neither the state auditor can exactly define, or 501c3 that's been around since the 50s.
The library.
Does much for, yeah. So the library's been around a lot longer than that.
But as I recall, some of those endowments would be coming under the cities,
The
not the ones in the foundation.
Right.
But is that,
right there were stocks and mutual funds with Edward Jones that were somehow kind of traveling along with the foundation's stocks and mutual funds, but those funds have since been cashed out and they are in a CD at Midwest One. So I mean, I think that Mr. Morrissey too may have been speaking to that, because I think we were somehow grandfathered in with those as well. But it's a nonprofit like the library can have CDs, but it cannot have mutual funds or stocks. And so as soon as that came to our attention, we cashed it out, and it's in the form of a CD now.
okay.
And just one more quick thing. Just wanted to let you know that one of the CDs, it's the revenue that came from selling the house that the library formerly owned, and the house was sold for a capital improvement project. So those funds continue to be earmarked for a library capital improvement project, and I'll be speaking with Doug and Melanie about what we may be able to use that for in the next 9 months or so.
Okay, great. Awesome. Any other questions? Great, I think this is a good move. It's good
Thank
for
you.
the city.
Yes.
It's good for you to take it off your plate.
Right.
Sorry to put it on your plate.
And, yeah, part of the reason why we're going to wait a little while is to make sure that this is not that there's as little stress associated with this transition as possible.
Sure. Yeah. All righty. Thank you
you.
so much. Next is Mendy McAdams regarding Main Street on a letter of intention. Letter of intent, I should say.
There you go, good idea. So you should all have a black folder. There's just some basic handouts in here. First of all, I want to preface this by saying I don't really know a lot about Main Street. I've just watched 27 videos and talked to every Main Street director in the state, pretty much, as well as at the state level, because I wanted to know everything. So I've killed enough trees. There are a couple other handouts. This is all of the services that when you join Main Street that you get for free. And this talks about impact to cities. But in your packet, you'll see the application process. Our first step was our board president, our chamber board president, Denise Hall, watched a 4 to 6 hour webinar on all of the things Main Street. She came back to our board and said, we need to go buy paint and start painting right now. She was so excited and just enthusiastic after watching it. And so after talking with her, talking with our board and some Main Street directors, we felt like we wanted to take the lead and make this happen. We've all sat through dozens of meetings where we've done mind mapping and all of the things and made the reports, and then we didn't see action. This is the first time when downtown revitalization seems to be on everybody's windows, whether that be Grow Fairfield, the chamber, the city. So it's a really great opportunity to do this. We are just looking to put in a letter of intent, which is due March 29th at 4 p.m. Now, once we submit the letter of intent, they will send us a group of experts and they will walk our city with us. They'll look at where our district makes most sense to us. What are we already doing great? We already know we are doing great in a lot of things. We already have the garden gnomes. We already have downtown seating, some of those things. So they'll tell us that we're already making great progress to where we need to be. Then we do this very extensive application, which is this big. It will take some time, and it'll take lots of people's brains to get it all put in there. But during that walk, they give you a lot of this information to help you find it. They actually do the mapping for you. A lot of that happens in that walkthrough. Our next deadline would be in May, which is when we submit the application. And then if you look through that, they really review it. If they find any like discrepancies or things that aren't quite complete, they'll tell you like this section isn't quite complete, and they'll give you 2 days to complete it. Then if you're accepted, there's a big announcement in Des Moines, and then they actually come and throw you a party in your city to say you're going to be on Main Street. As a chamber, we see this as a great opportunity for a partnership between the city, the chamber, and Grow Fairfield Economic Development. As we feel like we don't want one person to be in charge of this project because, one, it's just too big, and two, none of us have enough in our wheelhouse to be able to take that on. And this allows us all to have a say in what our downtown looks like, a say in what that vision looks like, and we can all collaborate in this. We've spoken with a few current Main Street directors as well as former Main Street directors in our summit meetings with Visit Fairfield, Grow Fairfield, the Chamber and City, and they've given us a wealth of knowledge. We do not have to hire a Main Street director until November. We would like to see that as a shared position in some way. One of the requirements for Main Street, though, is that the city has to sign on as support of it because it is a public-private endeavor. And in that support, it can be financial, it can be we give you the green light, it can be in kind. There's all kinds of ways that can happen. When we talked to the current Ottumwa Main Street director, the city started by giving them, I believe it was $6,000. They now give them $35,000. The county also kicks into their Main Street. This program really is an already proven product. They already have heard all of the naysaying. They've already heard all of that. They know how to combat that. They come to you. They meet you where you're at. They train the staff. They train the volunteers. They have quarterly trainings. And it can be member-based, or it can be, there's really a lot of options in that. Ottumwa does theirs as a SMID. Waverly does theirs as a TIF. And I believe Washington does theirs as something different even. So there's lots of opportunities there. We just want to put in a letter of intent saying we're interested in being a Main Street, and then after that, we have to be accepted. So I don't want to put too many carts in front of the horse here. This is just saying, yes, we know our downtown can be great. I really feel like it's one of the things that I hear a lot from members is that I bring this really great candidate in, right? We all have that route we drive. We know where we drive in Fairfield when we bring a candidate to town for a job, right? We know where we don't drive. And so bringing our downtown up to the quality that we want it to be is going to be on everybody's, I think, a positive for everybody. There's 4 pillars to Main Street. It's design, organization, promotion, and business, economic vitality. It used to be business vitality. They start small. You start with the low-hanging fruit. We've talked about this in our meetings as well. There's things that we can do that make a visible, are very visible, that make, and everybody in the district gets help, regardless if they join it or not. Everybody in that district can get help. So it makes sense that you play with who comes to dance first. And then pretty soon, those few people who are dragging along are the people that you're like, okay, everything else looks great. How can we get you motivated? They do a lot of things for free. So if we were to do like a facade project, they help you find the granting. There are several grants that you can only get as a Main Street. I wanted to give the information. You've got plenty there to look at. But we can't go forward without the city saying, yes, we want to make downtown great.
So, yeah, go ahead, Doug. You have a question.
So you need a letter from the city in conjunction with the nonprofit steering committee.
We have a letter of intent that we have written as as the chamber that we would like to see the mayor and the city administrator sign. Ed from Grow Fairfield has gotten permission from his board to sign it. Myself and my board president will sign it. So that already puts us in a leg up because it shows that we have a number of organizations who want it to happen.
So did you want an action item tonight, or will we, should we show this to the letter next, on the 25th? You have to have it in by the 31st, right?
Yeah.
Wait, no.
I can email you the letter. The letter is just a very generic, this is what we want to do kind of a letter. It talks about what we see as the importance of downtown.
Do you sign on behalf of the city, or does Doug sign?
Well, probably either one of us could sign, you know.
Or both. Oh,
Exactly.
we could approve the letter subject to their review and signature, and then it's done.
Yeah. I would definitely make a motion that we ask the mayor to go ahead and sign that letter of intent
Okay,
upon review.
Yeah, second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to review that letter of intent by the mayor and or the city administrator and sign off on that, so. Any other discussion or questions?
So if I just understand, the city is not committing
No,
itself to.
and it is a non-binding letter. If they do the walkthrough and we go, whoa, 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 this is way bigger than we want, we can bow out. I don't see that as a problem. It also, they talked a lot about how we have a really great volunteer base here in Fairfield, but it's always the same people. Main Street has a way of bringing out a different crowd of people that don't traditionally volunteer. They find those people that have those interests and they make it happen.
And any grant application that you would consider, you'd come here first if you needed matching funds or in-kind
Absolutely.
services, of course.
Well, we want it to be a shared position. I mean, at some point, we'll talk about that more in depth, but by having the city and economic development and the chamber all working together for the same cause, it just makes sense to us to do everything that we can to help downtown.
And it is possible there might be another partner or two within
Yes.
this group,
Absolutely.
so. Alrighty, I guess go ahead and call the roll.
Esti,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much for your support, council. Thank you, Mendy, appreciate it. Appreciate your enthusiasm. Resolution action items and ordinances. The first action item is consideration to set a public hearing for the annexation of Northridge Addition. And there's the parcels number. I'm not gonna read all those numbers. This is for Monday, March 25th at 7 PM. This is Martin Brett's piece of the reef grain and feed area. So that's what the Northridge addition is. So again, setting a public hearing for March 25th at 7 PM, which is our next council meeting.
I move we set a public hearing for annexation of Northridge Addition for March 25th, 2024 at 7 PM.
Moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Toohill. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Approved unanimously. First resolution is consideration of amending rates for labor and equipment. Melanie, do you want to say anything about this?
So this is our resolution, our labor rates that we use when using city equipment on private property. Occasionally, this is if they have not made the repairs themselves. This is sometimes used for Weston's cleanup work. Trying to think of other instances. So all of the departments use the same rate sheet: water, sewer, streets, code compliance, and parks. And so I discussed all of the rates that we had with the department heads, and we also looked then at the Iowa DOT labor rates for fiscal year 25, and these are the rates that we felt needed to be increased, as well as a couple that we needed to add based off of how we have been completing some of the work over the last year. We did look at these rates last year, but we have purchased a couple new pieces of equipment, which is why particularly the skid steer came to everyone's attention. That was the first one that kind of started this. All of this is because I think two of the departments purchased new new to them skid steers in the last year.
So this is primarily for like nuisance abatement, would you say, or
Not
not always?
Not always. A lot of it is used. So if a person has a stop box that they have been given the opportunity to hire their own contractor and they have not done that, we give them a time period, 30 to 60 days, and especially if they have not even called us to tell us that they're working on it or they're on a contractor's list, we will come in and do it and charge these rates. We definitely do not want to be in the business of doing that. So trying to stay, I'll say, competitive or above the local contractors, but yet not be so punitive to the people who, when we're doing cleanup and stuff.
Act as a disincentive, but
Right.
not.
Yes, exactly.
So I would make a motion to approve the amending of the rates for labor and equipment.
Okay, moved by
Second.
Flournoy,
Second.
second by SD. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Okay, next resolution is consideration of allocating remaining ARPA funds. So ultimately, this is saying the rest of our ARPA funds are going to go to the fire station.
You skip one?
She amended.
Oh, right. So I make the motion to allocate the remaining ARPA funds for the construction of the fire station.
Okay, moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Toohill. Any questions or discussion?
We've talked about this, a number of times. We just haven't made it official yet, so this is just the official act of it.
Yep. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
And by the way, that amount, the remaining funds were $308,776.70. Okay, the next is resolution for authorizing grants on behalf of the city. There are 2 grants. So Melanie, why don't you go ahead and explain these grants?
Yeah, and as Tom mentioned, we've discussed the ARPA funds, but we wanted to get that in front of you so that when I submit the grant application for the Washington County Riverboat Foundation, as well as the federal money from Miller Meek's office, that I can say that the city has made this additional commitment. So the first one is just a general resolution of support stating that the project, stating the project has been supported by $5 million of public referendum, and that the city has designated another 1.3 of ARPA funds, and that you support an application to the grant source for the fixtures, furnishings, and portions of construction of the proposed fire station. So this would be used to support the Miller Meeks application, as well as when the Greater Jefferson County Foundation grant comes around in a few months. The second one is specifically for the Washington County Riverboat Foundation. They have very specific language that they want you to use, that they change from application cycle to application cycle. So I'm asking for you to approve that one as well.
So let's take the first one. This is the general grant application resolution, and there is an application due for Miller Meeks, and this is I guess, for lack of better words, an appropriation bill that every year they do, and sometimes they have a different focus and different things that you can apply for, and so these are federal dollars.
And so I looked into some of the last year's projects, and so this district, is that the right? The area that Miller Meeks represents, about 15 different projects were awarded. They were mainly water, sewer, and street projects. However, Lee County's EMS building was awarded $1.2 million last year. So I've been trying to find on Lee County's Board of Supervisors minutes, their application, to see what they included. But that did make me feel very hopeful in putting in this application that another emergency services building did receive funding for this through her office last year. So I'll get that turned in on Friday.
And she had talked to us 2 or 3 years ago about this grant, and kind of gave us a heads up on it, and wondered why Fairfield had never applied for anything, and we were like, well, because we didn't know anything about it. So
And last year I found out too late, like most of the grants.
well, and last year she had talked about museums too. So when it came out, I pushed it over to Carnegie, and then it turned out that a museum wasn't an opportunity last year. So, and we didn't know about it till right at the end. In fact, we didn't know about this one again till what, 2 or 3 weeks ago. We didn't know when it was
Yes,
coming out.
yes.
They finally sent us the email. So they don't give you a lot of time to figure it out.
Yeah.
So at any rate, let's all put our positive energy that we get some money.
So moved. I move for the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, so when is the application due and when might the funds be granted for the general grant application?
So the Miller Makes grant, the application is due on Friday, and I'm trying to remember last year. It's within a couple months,
I was gonna
because,
say, isn't it June?
yeah, so her office, the way I'm understanding the process is the area submits things to her office, and then her office narrows it down, and then she submits a package to the appropriations committee. And so then it has to be approved on the federal level. Kind of the gist I was getting is that once her office approves it, most of those have been approved at the federal level. Like, there's not a second vetting. I mean, okay, there's a vetting that they review and make sure that they're legal and all that stuff, but most of the competitive nature comes through Miller Meek's office, based off of what I read through today. So a relatively short time frame that we should know about it. And again, we're competing with, this general area, so similar, demographic.
The congressional district.
Yes,
Within the-
thank you. I could not think of the
Yeah.
appropriate term.
Yeah, per district. Okay, any other questions? No, please call the roll.
Gandy,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. That's approved unanimously. And then the Washington County River Boat Grant Resolution.
I move that we approve the Washington County Riverboat grant resolution.
Moved by Esti,
Second.
second by Flournoy. Any discussion?
If at first you don't succeed,
Third time's a charm.
is this the third time?
Yes, yes, it is.
All right, okay. No other questions? Please call the roll.
Esti,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Next resolution, consideration, oh, no, wait a minute. Time it. Gotta move to the next thing. We're going to ordinances. Consideration to amend electric franchise fees. Tom, do you want to go through these, or? I mean, this was really part of our budgeting process. So, electric franchise fees and gas franchise fees, we'll vote on them one at a time, but it is moving them from 1% to 3% total
Yes.
as part of the budget process.
Yes. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm trying to remember here real quick. But yeah, that's correct. We have the option or opportunity to move them to 5% total. We are not wanting to do that. So we thought that we could, to make budget by moving them to 3%. And that was the recommendation of Ways and Means, which will balance the budget this year without any additional funds needed in addition to that. So
Which ones are we talking about in terms of the ordinances? Each one of them from 1 to 5% or 1 to 3% or
Supposed to get.
The electric and the gas.
those two?
Franchise
Okay.
Yeah.
fees.
Okay.
The first
Yep.
two you see.
And those are, those are about the only two I think we're able to do it with here. There was some talk whether or not, there is another electric company in town. It wouldn't apply to certain,
Households.
certain businesses or certain users of it, and which is a larger part of the other ones. So it wasn't really anything that would affect the scale one way or the other. So we were kind of limited to just this.
Okay, so, and you know, this doesn't mean it's in stone forever.
No,
If
we are
we
going
have
to-
an opportunity, I
Right.
think Ways and Means feels as if they have an opportunity next year to lower it, they will.
It will be, it
see.
will be readdressed next year on the budget committee. That's one of the first things that we'll address next year is,
Okay.
where we stand and how much we need it, so.
Should we,
Okay. So,
the strategy here was to choose an increase that would provide for a balanced budget with a $55,000 surplus?
No, I think we ended up lower than that.
30-ish?
30,
I thought it was
32.
25.
It's
25
between
is-
0 and 55,000.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
yes,
We're not negative.
right, we're not negative.
And this would allow us to give a 2% raise to our employees.
Right, correct,
That's the only thing I wanted to say.
okay.
The franchise fees only would do that, or the successive resolutions too? We're just talking about franchise fees.
Well, all.
Just
All
some-
together.
Yeah, some of
Oh,
these
franchise.
resolutions are past due. Some of these raises, we missed, a year, when the gentleman from, Piper Sandler, I get that, yes, Piper Sandler came and talked to us. There was recommendations of a few things that we're, going to try to enact there too. So that has to do with the water end of it when we get to that, so.
Okay, so the first ordinance is to amend the electric franchise fees.
So, I'll move to pass.
Okay?
Second.
Moved by Toohill, second by Flournoy. Any other questions? Not, please call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Then the next ordinance is to amend the gas franchise fees from 1 to 3%.
Just to be clear, and you may have touched on this, you said that it's not gonna pertain to every single household, it's based on?
No, this one will, the other electric
Oh, the
company
electric.
that's in town, wouldn't,
So that was just for the
I
electric.
think government buildings are excluded from it, and they do, I think the pump stations and stuff for the water department, and, the park and rec, I think, is under a different utility
franchise
company,
agreement with the other electric company?
so,
I don't know yet.
What is the other electric company?
Access?
Excess.
yes.
Why don't we have a franchise agreement with them?
Good question.
All these years.
Are they providing services to the city, or is it just that the city's exempt from having to?
No, there are some residents, I believe, that are under that. It's not much at all, but I
It might be that,
and I could be wrong, but
Okay.
the way I understood it, it's just a certain area. It's kind of around the Roosevelt, because the Park and Rec is on it, and I think there's a few right around that are on it, and then there's a few outlying ones I think that are on it too. So I know the water department has. It's either the Jordan Wells or the pump station has one of those is on it.
I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
So
I'm
maybe,
should look into
maybe
that.
City Hall can look into that.
Yeah.
We'll look into it.
Yeah.
So
I make the motion to approve the electric franchise fees
yes.
change from 1 to
Yes.
3%.
We're on gas now.
Yes.
I'm sorry, gas.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
spoke.
sorry. Moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Okay, next, the next ordinance, consideration to amend water rates, and this is moving to 2% increase. And again, these were reviewed at Ways and Means. You want to add anything, Tom?
No, did we take an increase last year?
no,
No.
we
No,
haven't,
no, no.
yeah,
Yeah.
we haven't had an increase since,
I think it was 3 years.
20
I think 3 years ago was our last increase.
21, yeah.
Yeah. So this is it 2%?
2 for
The
water,
wastewater is
5 then 3.
5 for the first year or 2 years?
For the first year.
For the
Sure.
first year, and then
Then-
it drops back down because we hadn't
3
taken one.
for every year after.
Right, and we hadn't taken one in wastewater either, so.
But this is just for next year. Are we adopting the schedule for 3% all the way out?
2% all the
Two-
way up.
Yeah,
2% for
effective
wastewater then.
Yes.
2025. So it increases by 2% annually, just like until we change it or
Yes.
forever?
Yeah, inflation, I mean, it's just the,
It's just inflation.
yeah, it's the inflation rate is what we used on that, so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And since we hadn't taken one in 3 years, so.
Okay. So again, this is amending the water rates, increasing 2%.
Annually,
Annually,
okay.
yes.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Moved by Toohill, seconded
Second.
by Gandy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Toohill,
Motion to
Yes.
raise taxes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Okay, now we will, consideration to amend sewer rates, and these are up by 5%. And these are what was suggested by our sample.
Yes.
5% the first year only,
Yes.
And then-
yes.
And then 3%.
And then 3% following that.
I'd make the motion to adopt the new sewer rates.
Okay, moved by Flournoy,
Second?
second by Gandy. Any other discussion?
Yes, so is it 5% the first year,
Yes,
3% the second year? What, is there any increase thereafter?
Yeah.
3% every year.
3%
3%.
thereafter
Yeah.
annually?
To
Okay.
keep up with inflation.
All right.
And does
I'm
this,
curious,
and your sewer rates are based off your water rates.
okay, so why is it 3% for sewer annually, and then 2% per year for water? Just curious.
All the projects we're doing. We gotta pay for the
Okay.
projects. You know, the line particularly, step
More
3, step 4, which step is that?
3, 4.
We're on 3.
3, right?
Yeah.
3, thank you,
Lift
Melanie.
station is pretty
Yeah.
expensive.
All right,
Yeah, all that blue pipe, if you go south of town, that's what we gotta pay for.
thank you.
did we already have a minimum base charge per month for each user regardless of use or non-use?
Yes,
And does it increase or is it?
yes. The base and per cubic foot.
Okay.
Under the same terms? Same, okay.
Okay, is there a motion?
There's a
Yes,
motion.
we
We already
don't
have
have a
one.
Oh,
second.
we do? Sorry about that. Moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. Sorry about that. If no other questions, call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes,
Ham,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
The next ordinance is consideration to amend recycling rates. The current rate is $4.95, and starting July 1, upon your passage, will go to $5.62.
Why that increase?
The July 1st, 2024, it went up, it's going to go up 3.5%, and then it's 50 cents on top of that.
Okay. Thank you.
and we are not collecting enough right now in recycling and solid waste to cover what we're being charged from waste management. So this is just to get us, this is not a profit center, this is just to get us to even as to what we're paying to have, to cover what we're being charged by waste management.
Going forward, but we've absorbed the losses from the past, right? The city's accepting the losses?
We had money in the account that covered it, so we didn't go into a deficit or anything on it. But going forward, that would not be available. So this is just to, moving forward,
I
that
just,
we'll have
so,
enough to
well,
cover.
I want to make sure citizens know, we were spending money out of our accounts to cover the
Yes.
shortage
Yes.
and the recycling rates.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a $200,000
City accounts, not mine.
balance in that fund a few years ago.
Yeah.
But it's getting spent down because a few years ago, we moved someone's salary, whose salary, doesn't matter, I guess, employee salary from general fund into this account to give relief to the general fund. But we didn't compensate that account for that increased debit. So now it's going down. So that's part of the reason we're adding the 50 cents on top. And we're also paying for the sustainability coordinator out of that fund, which is $15,000 a year.
So it's not exactly that we're the amount that we're being charged by waste management that we're covering out of that fund. There are
Other debits out of that
other.
fund.
Okay.
Yeah, but we gotta keep up. So that's what we're doing here.
The sustainability coordinator was actually being funded out of the excess that was in that account 2 years ago. We agreed, and
Right.
we agreed to do it for a year, 2 years, I think. We agreed to do it for a second year. So that was done because we had an excess in that account.
Right.
So we're not raising rates to cover that necessarily. We're raising
Well, that's
rates
true.
to match what we're being charged from
That-
waste
that-
management.
That money was sitting there and had no other use.
Right. It had to be used
So
in
I
that
wrote,
field.
I wrote the auditor's office, they said it would be okay to use it for the sustainability coordinator position. And so, then we took action. But you couldn't use it to pay for streets or salaries anywhere else. But if you had an employee who was working, spending their time on that area, billing, for example, then you could pay a portion of their salary commensurate to the portion of time they spent on that area out of that fund. So we did that also.
Thank you.
Okay. We need a motion to approve.
I move that we amend the recycling rates.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Esty, second by Flournoy. Again, this is going from $4.95 to $5.62. Any other questions? Not, please call the roll.
Esti,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Approved unanimously. Last ordinance, consideration to amend solid waste rates. Current is $9.09, and as of July 1, this would be going to $10.62. And again, kind of a similar issue.
Exactly.
Same fund, right?
So the flat rate that we're raising this one was 75 cents. So it's $1.25 total between solid waste and recycling per account. So
It's a monthly rate.
yes,
Is,
Yep.
It's not clear why we have two rate schedules instead of just one for everything, but we have two.
because not everybody is on both.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So there are some that don't have the recycling and don't get charged for recycling. So we have to have a separate rate schedule.
Right. Make the motion to amend the solid waste rates.
Okay, moved by Flournoy,
second?
second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
You get off the recycling.
Under the mayor's report, I have just a couple things. I left in front of you a couple sheets. This first single sheet is the conference board budget. Basically, the conference board budget is the budget for the assessor's office. And so, we have the assessor and, his few employees. It was approved, the conference board is made up of the different taxing bodies, the schools, the mayors, county supervisors. And they approved a 2% raise. Just so you know, it was voted to do a 3% raise, but that did not pass. And then it was voted to do a 2% raise, and that passed by the governing bodies. So the budget really is, pretty much the same as last year, except for those raises, and that equals a 4-cent levy increase. So in the conference board. Any questions on that? And then you have,
Well, what about the other county positions?
well, they're under the supervisors. Supervisors will do that budget.
And only the conference board is separate?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is just the assessor's office and that's it. Then the other one, which I apologize I didn't put at the top, but it's 911. And I gave you a sheet for revenues and a sheet for expenses. Basically, their income is about $204,000. Their expenses are $201,580. Basically, their income is off the surcharges off of landlines and our cell phones, okay? And then you have the expenses to run 911, so that includes, some money goes over to EMS actually, or EMA, and, because Brett does the 911 addresses and it pays for signs, like in your yard, and we have radio maintenance in here. One of the biggest expenses you'll see here is the $75,000 for vehicle and portable radios. There is money dedicated to that. Radios, antennas to cover our whole county is a huge expense, and so that fund is kind of being built up over time until something major is done.
And doesn't some of this go into the communications at the county,
Yeah.
at the jail,
Yeah.
where we have our employees, or
Well,
dispatch? I mean,
I-
not the salaries, but it goes into upgrading their equipment and that sort of thing.
I'm not sure. Well, that's a good question. I don't
Probably do.
remember anything coming directly from
Well-
911. Let me clarify that with Brett.
Maybe not every year, but occasionally it might.
It might, yeah, there might be some that goes over there. Cause, you know, we do radio stuff comes out of there sometimes for police or the sheriff's department.
But none of this comes out of our budget.
No. All coming out of 911 and the surcharge that they collect. So, again, not much different from last year, actually. I did arrange with Werner Elker he's got a show called Community Dialogues. And I have arranged, we'll start at the end of April, where we'll participate with that at the end of every month and talk about, you know, what happened at City Council, what's happening coming up. And I think Doug and I will probably share hosting, but, you know, we'll go around the block and everybody can participate throughout the year and talk about what's happening in your ward, or, you know, whatever's the topic at hand, and we'll talk about things that we have done at council. So April will be a little bit of a catch-up. Doug and I did this, about a month ago. And it's, you know, about 20 minutes, probably no more than a half hour. Again, it's an effort to, another way to communicate to the community. So Werner has a studio out in the old Telegroup building, and so we'll head out there. So I'll be talking to you as we go along. So it'll be in general, it's the Friday after our second meeting of each month. Okay? And just an FYI, I am going to be gone at our next meeting. Doug will pro temp. City Attorney report.
Yes. Well, Melanie's not in the room right now, but I wanted to compliment her on something that she took on as a task about recodifying something that will happen eventually when we get the rest of our input to a regular recoder. But for right now, she has taken about 180 ordinances from the last 15 years that need to get blended into our code book. Our new magistrate asks us about every other week about something and how that works, because there are amendments year after year on some of the sections in the code. It's a lofty task, and I appreciate Melanie jumping in with it. I didn't realize we had 180 amending ordinances during that time. Usually this happens every 10 years and we're required to recodify. When we get a little bit behind that, we go out to a contracted recodification, but in the meantime, we're floating. So thank you for that, Melanie. It's something that we need for the time being very much, especially with our new magistrate who asks lots of questions. So, second thing is, we have completed a cleanup out in the MHP newly owned mobile home park to the west of town. Weston participated in that along with a privately contracted cleanup group. We did it with escrowed money from a person that is in prison right now. Half of his $10,000 bond was escrowed after we had a hearing this past fall about whether that money got released or not. There was also, I think, about it was either 4,192 or 4,912 that the county asked for as far as payback on things that he benefited from, as far as things that were paid for him on the county side. So this individual, about every 3 days, he has one of his acquaintances, I'm just going to say, as far as we get calls from a couple of people that identify themselves as his girlfriend that want to know when he's getting his money back. We went ahead after the private contractor and Weston had done their work. We did something that we talk about a lot, but we actually did it this time as far as certifying what the costs were. We spent more than $5,000 by about $100. Weston billed for overseeing the cleanup and some time and things that the city put into it. And then the private contractor had about $4,000 of that figure. So when we certified it, the court had a few ways it could have handled it. When we did the certification of the costs, we laid out and included invoices and what was done and where the money was supposed to come from. And ordinarily the court would just say, all right, we've got clerk of court holding $5,000 of your money, Mr. Defendant, and we're going to condemn those funds to use for what you agreed they could be used for as far as this cleanup. Since the guy agreed to the cleanup, he started deciding he'd like to have his money back. City never agreed to that after the agreement was made for the cleanup. The magistrate said, well, he's written us letters. His lady friends have said that he's supposed to get his money back. What do you want to do about it? I said, I want to have a hearing on it, and I just want to hold him to the flame. He's already promised that money for this use. So we filed a certification with the court along with discussion with the court. The court scheduled a time for this to be reviewed. It's not until April 11, but at the same time that the court's doing that, the court appointed him some representation, which is an attorney called a guardian ad litem. If you are in prison, you are treated as a person that is disabled and not in a position to represent yourself in the same capacity as if you were at liberty outside of prison. So I don't have a problem with that. That's the way that's supposed to work too, but it's as an extra layer added to what we have to do. My expectation is that we will show the court we have reasonable billings, and we had a promise from him last September 12th, reviewed again last November before he went to prison, and that now that he's got a different attitude about it, that's not our problem any longer. We went ahead and did the cleanup. We had dumpster loads of things go out of the trailer park and 2 trailers. So at this point, the site's clear. We're content with what we did being the right way to abate it, but we'll still be probably reporting back to you about this in mid-April. Another matter that we've been talking about and that is going on with a hearing on the 21st of March is the 36 dog case. And that particular situation, I filed 2 proposed orders with the court. One is to deal with how we manage 36 animals under our licensing ordinance. The other one is how we manage abatement. Weston has communicated with the city physician, and we have a letter that deals with public health issues about that many animals in one household. Also, there's another opinion we have obtained about what that does to property value when you have that situation. And we did get a landscape architect's recommendation on how to remedy the problem as far as the yard being a desert because of all of the animal waste at the site. So there's a way to restore the yard. There's things that can be considered by the court as far as each of the two orders that are sentencing orders. I would expect that we're probably going to have a couple hours hearing on that with some of the neighbors back another time. You haven't had anything new, have you, Weston, since we got it set?
No.
All right, so that's where we are on those things, which are, I guess, our probably our biggest presses with the magistrate right now. Other than that,
You anticipate this, we anticipate this will be the last court date regarding this?
unless they appeal to district court.
Okay.
But yes, that's the
Hopefully this will
game
be the
plan.
end.
Yeah. And other than that, I hope I see most of you on Friday afternoon, okay? We'll have a break from the activity.
All righty. Thank you, John. Committee and board reports, Ways and Means.
We got a little ahead on this one. I misunderstood what we were discussing here, but this is for the airport contract. I thought it was a different airport contract than what we're referring to here. So we have discussed this. We're not ready to make recommendation on it yet. We have to meet one more time, so we will bring this back to council another time.
Great, thank you. Planning and Zoning Commission minutes. Melanie, you want to highlight anything here?
Yes, so the only action really that I would like the council to consider is the discussion item on the agenda was regarding wind turbine zoning. So the draft county ordinance for the wind turbines was to give the city a 1 mile jurisdiction for the turbines. And the discussion for planning and zoning was what type of regulations you would like to see in that 1 mile. And rather than discussing that at that time, the Planning and Zoning Commission would like to see a wider jurisdiction. They're requesting a 2 mile jurisdiction for the city of Fairfield regarding the turbines. Like our zoning or like our subdivision ordinance, the county would have to grant this to the city since we do not have extraterritorial zoning. So I guess the action that I would request from the council, if you choose to, would be to support the Planning and Zoning Commission's request, or to have Doug and I or the mayor send a letter to the supervisors regarding that request. There will have to be some, I'll say, negotiations for lack of a better term. There's only about 1.5 miles difference between Fairfield and Vedic City, and there's about 3 miles between Libertyville and Fairfield. So if every city in the county had a 2 mile jurisdiction, there's going to be overlap. So there will have to be, again, some negotiation for lack of a better term. With Vedic City, though, our airport will always supersede things due to FAA regulations and the airspace requirements that have been in law much longer than anything that's being proposed. So I personally don't have a concern about the overlap with Vedic City. If you know our cities, our planning and zoning boards' wishes are different than Vedic City's, our airport will still be protected. That is, I guess, kind of the action item in front of you. I don't have a specific letter or anything for you to review, but as the county continues in their public hearing process and drafting of this ordinance, I guess we would like some council direction on how you would like to proceed.
Okay, so the county wants a mile to avoid these conflicts?
That is what they have
Is that the
done their
rationale?
public hearing on.
Well, there's a draft currently
Okay,
that
yeah.
gives every single city in the county the ability to approve any proposed project within 1 mile radius of that city. And so that was what's currently in the draft, but it's just a draft. The county's gonna have a public hearing on it
Is that
on the
considered
18th.
So are they granting us extraterritorial control?
Basically for
at a mile?
up to a mile,
Okay.
but I think the issue is that planning and zoning is requesting 2 miles. The city currently has extraterritorial zoning for subdivisions that's within a 2 mile radius of the city. But I don't think that every city in the county has that extraterritorial zoning. It's just Fairfield, so this is kind
Yeah,
of a
and
separate.
it's only zoning for subdivisions.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's
Nothing
only
else.
for subdivisions and it doesn't pertain to this wind turbine.
And this would be only approving wind turbines within that 1 mile or that 2 mile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my next question is, will all the wind turbines be within 1 mile of the city of Fairfield?
There
Or-
likely would not be any because of the topography and the electric grid and things that I've heard. But as we discussed in planning and zoning, the moment that we decide not to do anything, then I will have to eat my words because someone will decide to put one there.
So if we did a 1 mile right now, we wouldn't include any of the turbines?
None of them that are proposed
But if
right
we
now.
went to 2 miles, would we include them all?
There is none of the proposed that they are currently talking about. The 2 mile does not even include those.
Oh, I
So
see.
we're talking future regulations, future construction. Within the city limits, we have a height limit of 35, so anything between 35 and I think it's 75 goes to Board of Adjustment regardless. Anything within, I think it's like 1,000 feet of the airport that's over 75 feet goes to the airport board. So we do have some regulations already in place.
That's been tried once. Cypress Village wanted to have wind turbines next to the runway. And it also goes to FAA.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're pretty safe out there.
Yeah, and the county still has like the tall structures ordinance, and all applicants would have to get an FAA permit, before they could construct anything, so.
So the area that Planning and Zoning Commission was specifically talking about would be like the northeast side of the city up by Walton, where, ground's a little flatter, but our city limits kind of start to have a lot of fingers, and, 2 miles may reach into an area that someday would be eligible for wind
Well,
turbines,
as
not
a-
necessarily the current project,
As they improve the technology, areas that are not suitable now would become suitable later.
quite possibly.
Why wouldn't the city want the greater flexibility of a 2 mile jurisdiction rather than 1?
That is what the Planning and Zoning Commission is asking.
Right.
Yeah, so that is their request.
Yeah,
What motion-
And I will say also, just kind of speaking from my perspective, the county said, well, let's ask the city what they would like. And initially, the request was a 1 mile radius, so
Was
it's
it from
not
the
like.
city?
Yeah, from the city. That was what the discussion that
Yeah.
we had. So it's not like the county just came up with this, trying to stick it to this, it's, just
So
give some more
the 1
background.
mile is basically what our future land use plan includes, which is where I came up with the 1 mile when we initially went to the county. And so then we took it to planning and zoning because we had a planning and zoning meeting, and that's when they requested, well, what about a little bit more?
So this is not a pressing issue, even if they build a wind farm tomorrow, it wouldn't matter to us, because
Yes.
it's outside of 2 miles.
Yes, but I also don't want to lose track of it because if you've seen
I
my
think we should
office,
do it.
I would probably lose
What kind of
track.
motion do you want for the?
Wait,
planning and zoning?
we're not finished. Is 2 miles the most we can ask for?
Yeah,
That's the maximum?
yeah, for extraterritorial.
But every time that we change our city limits, we can push it out 2 miles. So as we grow, the limit grows.
All right?
That's true.
Okay. That's good.
And this is this is just a request to the supervisors. They can deny it, but we will. Staff will work with. We'll continue to work on this. We just want to know what your preference.
Well,
And I will
So-
also say, because it was in an open meeting, the supervisors initially talked about 2 miles, but at that time, like I said, it was a 1 mile request. And then they suggested granting it to all the cities within the county, which is why maybe that might impact whether or not Fairfield could now get that 2 mile radius.
So what kind of motion do you want from us?
If you would like to support the 2 mile request from planning and zoning, it would be,
Okay, so I'd make the motion that we support the request by planning and zoning, their request to the county supervisors for a 2 mile territorial limit on the wind turbine question.
Great.
Second.
Something like that.
Okay, moved and seconded to
Real
support
quick,
planning
is it
and zoning.
a limit or is it jurisdiction?
jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction, not a limit.
Because then the
So-
Planning and Zoning Commission would create an ordinance for that 2 miles that would start with Planning and Zoning Commission and then come to you as an ordinance.
Right.
Okay.
Which more than likely is going to be none within 1 mile, possibly the whole 2 miles. But
All right,
we
so
didn't
then
get
I would
that far.
support, I'll rescind my motion. It didn't get seconded, so we're okay.
I'd second
No,
it.
yeah, Gandy seconded.
Friendly language change, just up to 2 miles, because we're gonna have those places where we don't
Right.
have 2
Well, no,
miles.
We can
2
negotiate
mile,
with-
sure, 2 mile jurisdiction, it doesn't mean that we couldn't at some point decide as a city to allow a wind turbine to be built closer, correct?
That's a,
Right.
that's a
We
difference
have the
between a limit and
jurisdiction of 2
jurisdiction.
miles, so that,
Right.
I don't think that should change. We
Right,
just-
so we're asking for a 2 mile jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll amend it to say, limit to jurisdiction. You accept the
Second.
amendment?
I do.
Okay, so that's just a friendly amendment. We're okay on what the motion actually is?
Right.
Okay, so 2 mile jurisdiction, basically supporting what planning and zoning is requesting. Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Any other questions? Now please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham. Yes. Rowe,
Yes.
Esty.
I wonder if I have to abstain. I'm like negotiating with myself here because I'm drafting the ordinance. So
You're a county attorney, so you can.
I'm not gonna abstain.
Sounds
Okay, great. So that passed with 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Anything else, Melanie? Guess not. You're walking away. Okay, administrator report.
Last week, I believe we finally got the water line installed for the new community garden out at OB Nelson. Right now, we are talking about an agreement with the garden club and all the partners for that, but this community garden is to help begin the process of addressing the food insecurities in Fairfield. This is a big start, so I appreciate the water department for getting that done. The compost site is open for now. They have been in there grinding all of that material for the last 2 weeks at a cost of about $15,000. So people are really coming in, but we will go back and make sure that we are still only open on the weekends so that we can mitigate some of those commercial people going in and dumping all of their logs and material and we're back in the same position until we've gotten this alternative site that we've been working on, I believe, for almost a year and a half, 2 years, to address this. So once we have a place that we can manage some of this material, but we have mulch beyond mulch. We have a mountain of it and actually multiple mountains of it. But we're working on it and we're going to continue to address the problem, but we want to make sure that this is in place for the community and help out our citizens and not, kind of manage the contractors coming in and disposing of their waste on the taxpayers of the community. I have been speaking with the department heads. This is actually a redundant conversation because they already do these things, but I want to make sure that we are keeping our eye on the needle of making sure that we are doing everything we can with cost savings and watching our expenditures. And how do we address that? Is there things that we could do more efficiently, more effectively? It's really important that we're not overspending, but we're also keeping up with inflation. So we do have to make some changes, and we're continually looking at our processes I have been going around to each department. I spent a considerable amount of time with the Parks Department at the rec center, figuring out that operation, because there's always cost savings in those things. I've spent time with water and wastewater, and we will eventually have these conversations throughout the organization to figure out. Sometimes we have to spend money to save money in the future. Technology is helping us with some of those things, and we're working on that. But that is something that we're focused on, and I want to continue doing. Highway 1 opens, they're going to start construction again on March 20th of next week. Here we go again. There's some logistics that I'm not going to steal Melanie's thunder, because she's been working very, very hard to get this last phase done. But March 20th, they will be working on Fillmore. That's the big one. She was out today. I typically like to go with her so that I can actually, I like boots on the ground, I always have, to see how things are working. But it's going to be inconvenient probably for the month of April. And they will work as diligently and as efficiently and as safely as possible. I'd like to keep everyone in mind that you can get anywhere in Fairfield in about 6 minutes. So if we have to go around to keep our contractors safe, that's awesome. If we have problems getting children to school, I will be happy to meet them somewhere and walk them to school, because I need them safe as well. But we're almost done. And then we'll get this thing finished up. And then we'll be starting to have conversations about Crow Creek Bridge and that construction project, closing off another arterial street, but baby steps. We're getting there. Thank you, Melanie, for keeping the eye on the prize. The Parks Department, I asked them to send me some information of all the things that we're doing. And I was actually there this weekend, and they had the volleyball tournament happening, and that brings in a lot of people. That place is packed. There's no place to park. There's people dining out. It's wonderful. They've got the Easter egg hunts. They've got the teen night. I think that's been here and gone. But they've got the spring break pool parties coming in, and that's actually this week. And they reduced those prices. And I actually had to call the parks director and ask him what the facility memberships versus the facility members meant, because I didn't know how those numbers were. Basically, that we have 1,700 people that are using the facility, but there are only 1,017 memberships, but the rest of them are like group memberships for like big industries and manufacturers that have
Schools.
Cambridge schools, those things. So that's what that means. That's pretty amazing.
Does that include the city employees?
Yes.
All the city employees have a membership.
Yeah, we all have that. So I have been talking with Lindsay Bauer, the executive director of the convention center, and about our public budget presentation. And her and I were having the conversation, when would be the best time, what dates we would have available. And she said that because I actually threw out some March dates and some April dates, she has nothing available in April, which that's actually a great thing. But she has March 26th and March 27th available for a public meeting for our department heads. She said that they get the most traffic during the morning hours, and she thought that between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. would be great, but I would like the conversation to be discussed with the council if that would work for them, if they would be available to, on one of those 2 days, to have all the department heads, and we would present in the theater in a very professional setting, and then all the department heads would come to speak and present their individual budgets and have those conversations with the public, and we could do that in about 15 minutes per, and then open up the floor for questions from the council, but also questions from the public at the very end.
So you want us available on Tuesday and Wednesday both from 8 to 12?
Well, I think we could do that on one of those days. I mean, it's not between 8 and 12 on either March the 22nd or 8 and
Okay.
12 on March the 27th.
26th
26th or
so,
the
right.
27th.
You estimate it would take half a day.
Yeah.
I can do either one, doesn't matter, because they're both bad.
I would prefer,
But I'll make it happen.
my preference would be the 26th, the earlier day.
Same.
That's just me.
That would be my preference as well.
Either one is fine for me.
26 works for me.
Okay.
Okay, so we just do budget
I won't be here.
presentation.
Sorry. I'll be
Are you sorry?
That's spring- that's also the week of spring
flying to
break.
Costa Rica that day.
Oh,
That's
Sorry.
spring break also for Maharshi School. I don't know about when the Fairfield School has spring break.
is now.
That's this
Right now,
week.
so,
Yeah.
all right.
I did the best that I could, trying to
Yeah,
make
it's
it
hard.
happen.
Yeah.
Go ahead and postpone that.
Yeah.
And this is,
I'll
This is
think about you.
recorded too, right?
yes, we'll have Jason record it. They actually have the stuff set up. He knows how to operate the systems. So we're gonna do the best that we can, and this is the first go. And if it works, it's fantastic. If it doesn't work, then the governing body can elect not to do it again. But at least we're trying, and that's the goal. But I will, if you say the March the 26th from 8 a.m. to 12, I will be sending out invitations to the County Board of Supervisors and the schools, all the governing bodies, but we will encourage the public, the manufacturers, everyone to be there to see what we're doing and how we're doing it. We just want to make sure that everybody knows what sort of detail and what sort of work we're doing.
Are we calling this a meeting?
If everyone is there, it's a meeting.
And you, sorry, you'll have to chair. Or,
Mayor Pro
So
Tem.
because
we'll-
I'm not gonna be there. Because I
Well,
can't
we're
be
gonna
there.
gather, but it's not really a meeting, right?
We could
don't
call
have
it
an
a work
agenda.
session.
Yeah.
We'll call it a work session?
Okay.
Budget work session.
All right. I'll make the motion that we agree to have a budget work session at Arts and Convention Center at 8 to 12 on
26th.
March 26th.
Okay, is there a second?
That's second.
Second by Rob. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Passed. All right, thank you.
That's all I have.
I think it'll be good. Yes, sir.
I understand there was a visit of the council to the airport this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
That happened? Is it, I wonder if anyone,
Yeah, we didn't
I
talk
visited
about that.
earlier, so I didn't have a chance to attend with council this weekend, but I wonder if anyone
Yeah,
who's on part
anybody
of that.
wanna share?
Speak to it?
There's a lot that happens at our airport, and it's truly one of our gateways into our community, and I think that's what really was reinforced to me more than anything, is how that's a first impression place of our city, and we have many people who come through that avenue, whether they're coming for the industries that are here or for tourism, just to come and spend the weekend. We have pilots that are in small aircraft that are stopping for fuel and talking about us to other people. So, I think there's a place there that we need to think of it that way. It's easy to forget it because it's out there in the middle of the pastures in a sense, because it's got to have the big sight lines around it. And just learning a lot about just what it takes for two men to run all that aviation and all this strict security, whether it's dealing with the animal life and I should say the wildlife that wants to sit on the runway or come around, and just that very thing of being that front door for local businesses, whether it's the hotel motel industry or whatever. So as we keep that in mind, that's helping the economy of our whole region, because that's where people are able to come in. I like the status of our airport too. It's a higher grade just because of the type of traffic that we have coming, and that's something remarkable for a small town of our size, and it has had for a long time. Maybe you other two have.
Because there are 5 different levels of airports in the state, and the top being commercial, and I think there's 6 commercial airports in the state, and then it goes down below that. We are second level in the state, and we are the smallest town in the state to be second level. So the amenities that we offer, the facilities that we have, the length of the runway, the thickness of the runway. There are planes that can land in Fairfield that can't land in Ottumwa. We have the same size runway, but ours is thicker. It'll hold a heavier plane. There's the fact that we're that far up the scale is a huge advantage to us that people just don't know about.
That's cool. It's great.
Either
I'll just
Nick
mention
Beach or
it.
Fairfield.
Yep.
I'll just mention that I was at O.B. Nelson Park yesterday. We took a walk, went down to see the garden, and the park was very busy. There was somebody on every piece of equipment. There were a couple boys from Mediapolis on the skate park. Thought that was kind of cool. Somebody on the basketball court, somebody in the dog park, somebody on the baseball field. A lot of activity. It was really neat to see, and I checked out the new Castle Park. And that is really cool.
It is.
Lots of educational things on there and some good slides. So, and Melanie, you don't have anything for your, okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Esty, second by Flournoy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great, thank you, council. Meeting adjourned.